Hey, do you know which states generate the most electricity in the US? Don't Google it. I bet some of you know already, though. Anyways, let's turn electricity data into clear and actionable insight. You see here, and in today's video, we'll be transforming electricity generation data into this report using Power BI. So we'll cover DAX measures and visualization techniques. If you're looking to level up your Power BI skills, stick around.
Published in Power BI service. We have the year, state, and energy source slicers. If we select a particular year, you can see that the other visuals filter, and the same applies to the state and the energy source slicer. And then we have card visuals here showing the total electricity generated, renewable energy share, and carbon dioxide emissions. We also have the top 10 states by electricity generation in a column chart, and the energy mix in a donut chart, top 5 states by renewables, and then the electricity generated by year. And lastly, we have the carbon dioxide emissions by state. So if I select this state, it shows and it interacts with the other visuals as well. Head over to Power BI desktop and create this together. Before we build the reports, we need a well-structured model to make it easier to create measures, apply filters, and generate accurate insight. But let's look into the data first. We have the country code, the state code, state type, year, category, subcategory, variable, and unit. You see here that the units varies. You can see percentage, gigawatt hour, and then you have kilotons of carbon dioxide. I'm going to take out the total, US total here. There's a state here that says US total. That's just summing everything together. So I'm going to take that out. And now load more and take that out. It should be somewhere here. Yep. And then I'll also take every other total here. I'm taking out total emissions and total generation as well. So check here. And that's about it. I'm going to break this down into fact and dimension tables. So the fact tables contain the quantitative data and the dimension tables contain the descriptive data. If you want more information on this, I can make another video. Just let me know in the comment section. I will go ahead and duplicate this into, I think, about 5. Then I'll choose the columns for this fact table. This will be the fact table. So I would choose, I don't think we need the country code. We do need the state, and we need the year, the category, the subcategory, variable, unit, and value. I think this would be what we'll be needing for the majority of it. So I'll delete these ones and use this particular table for every other thing. We'll name this the fact energy source table. So I'll just rename that. I'll create the dimension table for the states now. I'll choose columns again. And this time around, I'll just be choosing the state. Yeah, just the state. Well, I could also choose the state code as well, but that means I'll have to go back into the fact table. And then I'll remove the duplicates because we only want unique data here since it's just describing the data. Hit here and remove duplicates. So there we have it. I think the reason why we have 51 states here is because Washington, D.C. appears as a state in this data set. So I'll rename this to dimension state. And then we'll move on to the next one, and that will be the energy category. So I'll rename that to dimension energy category. And then I'll just do the same thing. So what I will be focusing on here would just be the category, subcategory, and the variable, which is the energy source. Remove the duplicate here. So just right click and remove duplicates. So you see that under subcategory and category, some things are still duplicated because they are, for instance, this is energy generation electricity generation and power sector emissions. So they represent two different things. That's why you still have them here. But the energy sources are all like unique. I'll do the same thing for the units and the year. I wouldn't say these two are very important, but I would just rather have them done. So I'll rename this to dim units, that's dimension table units. And I will select the columns that I want. In this case, I just want the units. Okay, and I will remove duplicates as well. So these are the unique units that we have here. And lastly, I'll do the year, rename that to the year, and then I'll choose the columns that I want here. And I will remove the duplicate as well. So there we have it. I will then close and apply and return to Power BI Desktop. The first thing here is I want to change my canvas settings. That's the size here. So I'm changing it to a custom size. I would do a width of 1920 and a height of 1301. But you can use the 16:9 that Power BI has. I'll change the background now. I'm changing the background to a particular color. So the hex code is E7, E5, E8. And I'm just going to set the transparency to 40%. I was going to add like a shape. So I'll go to insert and then hit shape. I'll just go with this one. I use this one, but I'll go with this one now. And then I'm just going to increase that. I have a particular size I also want this to be. So I'm going to change the size in here to 565. Okay, there we have it. And then I'll change the color as well. Move on to creating some measures. I'll go on to, I can do it from here, but just wanted to show you that Power BI has already created a star schema. It's just a model that organizes the fact tables and the dimension tables with the dimension table surrounding the fact table. And then you can see the relationship here is 1 to many, and the fact table is on the many side, and the dimension tables are on the one side. So I will create another video probably on this. But yeah, I'll just hit enter data on home. And then I'll name the table DAX measures just to put our measures in a particular table and not have them scattered around. So I'll go back to report. First measure I will be creating is the total electricity generated. I'm just using electricity generated here. Using the calculate function. So what that basically does is that it evaluates an expression in a modified filter context. So the expression we're using here would be the sum. And what are we summing? We're summing the total amount of energy generated, right? And where can we find this? That will be under the value here. That's the fact energy source value. So if you go back to the table, you see the value for each of them. But the filter context in this sense now would be where the unit is in gigawatt hour, and that shows the amount of electricity generated. So I'm just going to close that sum. And then the next thing I would do is that I would create the filter. The filter we're using is fact. That's the fact table, and the unit we're looking for here is this unit, that's gigawatt hour. So what this would do is that it would sum the value where the unit is in gigawatt hour. So that's just basically what that would do for us. So I'll just hit enter. And then I'll also change this to 2 decimal places as well. So I'll go ahead to create the carbon dioxide emissions as well. I'll create another measure. It's very similar to this one, so I'm just going to copy it. That saves us time. And then I will create a new measure here. and do this. So it will sum up the values where the energy source will be measured as KT CO2. So the T should be in small letters. So this is basically how energy emissions are calculated in KTCO2. So anywhere it sees a unit that is KTCO2, it would sum this up. I'm just going to hit enter. No, I need to change the name first to CO2 emissions. Yeah, just hit enter, and then we can change it as well to two decimal places, but you can always leave it as whole number, depends on what you want. I had to create another measure. Now that will be the renewable energy, total renewable energy. So just do the same thing, new measure. Since we're still using the calculate function, to be honest with you, I'm just going to copy and paste as well. So I'll change the name to renewable energy here. I keep writing in caps, so renewable energy. This is how we are going to calculate it. So we're still maintaining the same thing because it's just the amount of renewable energy generated, right? But there'll be some more things added. Format this measure properly. Okay. So we're summing up the value where the unit is in gigawatt hour, and we need to add another filter context, and that's the beautiful thing about the calculate function. You can always add as many filter contexts as you like. So that'll be not, and then we have fact renewable energy source, and then we'll have the in, we'll have curly brackets, and then I'll put the sources that are not renewable and explain why. So in this case, we have fossil, then we have gas and other fossil. We have coal, we have just gas, then so I've gone ahead to type in the energy sources that are not renewable. So we have fossil, gas and other fossil, coal, gas, other fossil, nuclear, and clean. And the reason why clean is here is because we can't really determine if it's renewable energy or non-renewable energy. So I'll go ahead and close this bracket, right? And the next thing I'll do, I can always adjust this as well, just to make it look a bit cleaner. And then I will close this and hit enter. So there we have it. It's the renewable energy. The next one we're going to do is the non-renewable energy. So I'm just copying this as well, just to save us some time. And then new measure. This time I'm going to name it non-renewable energy. And instead of having not, I will just have only in, right? So I'll take out the not here. So it will be the sum of the energy source value with a unit of gigawatt hour, and where the energy source is fossil, gas and other fossil, coal, gas, other fossil, nuclear, clean. So I'll hit enter, and then I'll increase this as well. Okay. Last measure we are going to have is the renewable energy share measure. The last measure is the renewable energy share, and that will be percentage renewable energy share. In this case, we'll be using the divide function. We'll use the renewable energy, total renewable energy that we previously calculated. That's the numerator, and the denominator will be the electricity generated. Okay, For handling zeros, I'm just going to add an alternate result to it and add 0 to it, and then we'll hit enter now as well. So just changing it here under this. Let's just go ahead to build our visuals. So the first one we would go for is the slicer. So just under visuals here, you see the slicer here. Across the visuals, you can select whichever one you choose to select. So yeah, I'm just going to do this. Okay, I'll put it here, and what I'm going to select as the first slicer is the year. I'm just going to change this. So go under format your visual, and I'm changing this to a drop down, and then I'll resize it. What you can also do is that you can go to view and just customize the sizing for some of them. So I would go to the visuals and change the text on the card and KPI. I'll change this to this, and I'll leave it at that. I'll make some changes much later as well. But yeah, just because I want to ensure that this one is exactly how I want it to be, right? I'll go on to visual slicer header. I'll change this to semi bold, and I'll increase it to big, to 14 maybe. So I'll just change the background color. This is it. But you can see here that we can't really see what's going on in there anymore. I'll change the title text to white and the values as well to white. So you can see that that didn't change here that much. So let's just change the background of the drop down as well. We'll change it to that same color. So yeah, there we have it. So I can just copy and paste this one, and then copy and paste again. So I'll just adjust it. I'll change this one to state, turn this off, and then change it to state. And then this one will be changed to energy source. I'll just turn off the year, and I'll change it to energy source under dim energy category. So the next thing we'll move on to building now is the visuals. That's the card visuals. So I'm using this new card. So I'll just hit that, and then I'll resize it. A particular size in mind. I'll just come on to this format your visual bit. Let me hit that again. Or rather, I'll have to put something in there before it can actually work. So let's put electricity generated. Something has gone wrong here. When I added electricity generated, it gave me this error. So let's see what happens here. So it says here, calculation error in measure. The function sum cannot work with values of type string. There's obviously a mistake here. So what I'll do now is, what that means is that probably the values were saved as text. So I'll go back to Power Query and see what the values have been saved as here. So value, you can see here is saved as text. So always remember to change that, your values to decimal numbers or whole numbers, depending on what it is. So I'll just hit that, and then I will close and apply. Let's see if there's been any change. So you can see that that automatically changes. So you have to watch out for things like this. So I'll go ahead and make some changes to this, starting off with the background color. I'll change the background color here just under the visual. So I'll scroll all the way down to background here, and I'll change the color to this particular one. I also want to change the text here. I'll change the color to white. Okay, that looks much better. And then I will add a title to this. Turn it on, and I'll name it total electricity. Make it into name it however you please. So I'll just change these to, and then I'll add some padding, or I can just put it right there in the center. I don't like the background color, so I'm just going to change that. So I'll just change the title size and color. Let's change that to white as well. And let's just make it 16. Yeah, I think that looks, or let's add some more values to it. Let's make it 19. Okay, then we go to the card here and change that. So I'll turn off the background here. These things can be done at the end, but I just always like to do it right at the beginning. So I'm going to give it some rounded corners. So just right on that general, I'll change this to, let's increase it to about 10 pixels. Okay, and then go back to the card, the values. So under color values here, I'm just going to put it somewhere here. A few adjustments. This is what we have. And then I'll just copy and paste this in like multiple places. Let's say 4 places. Let's just adjust this one and just align this too. Let's go ahead and change the values for these ones. So let's change the value to, let's add renewable energy here. Energy, we'll go to, just tick this and then put this on. Then the next thing we'll put here is renewable energy share and percentage. I'll just take out the electricity generated. Lastly, we have the CO2 emissions. Take out this as well. So I can just go ahead and rename them every card. And I'll just rename this one's renewable energy. All of this is measured in gigawatts per hour. So I'll just change that to GWH. Yeah, and the renewable energy percentage, that's the share of renewable energy in the electricity generated. So then lastly, it will be the total emissions or total CO2 emissions. Let's add a column chart here. So I'll just use the clustered column chart. Let's resize that. I would need to move some of these visuals a bit. Yeah, let's move it up a bit. So you can just use, you can hit shift to move them together. So I'll add this one here. So the sizing I was thinking about here is for the column chart is 400 by 617. But let's add the values here. So the generated by state. So just drag the electricity generated here and then we add the state. Okay, this seems like a lot going on. Yeah. Let me resize this first. So I'll resize it to 400 and 617. Okay. And then I will filter this because I only want the top 10 states to show here. So the top 10 states by electricity generation. So the states that have generated the most electricity. So I'll click on filters here and on here just click on state, change this to top n, and then you can type in 10. That's depending on the number that you'd like to add there. So it's 10 I'm doing. And then the field I'll bring in is the electricity generated, apply filter. And there we have it. So I will just make this look somewhat better as well. You can always do this at the end. I just like to do it as I go along. I will close this filter pane, change the column bar to a different color, changing the color to this green here, and that just looks a lot better. Then I'll turn off the grid lines and turn off the title on both axes. Also change the way the text appears. That's these values here. Just want to change them to something different. So I'll use Sego UI Lite and I'll increase that to, let's say, 14. Do the same thing for the y-axis. Change the title size as well. Now we'll use the semi-bold Sego, and then I'll change that to, let's say, 18. You can do whatever pleases you with this. So I will just create a donut chart here. It's right up here and resize it. So I'll bring in the renewable and non-renewable energy. So to values and non-renewable. Of course, the color changes to a very funny color. But let's see if we can get this to work on here. Just that worked. But yeah, we'll change the color as well. So you just change the slices. Then I'll change this one to another form of green. So I have one in mind. That's the hex code. You can use whichever pleases you. So there we have it. And then I will just change the title to energy mix. So this just shows the percentage of renewable energy versus non-renewable energy, basically. Then let's put in the next visual, which is the bar chart. So because I want to retain the size of this one, I'm just going to copy and paste it. Yeah, and let's bring it somewhere here. We're going to have to move this guy a bit. Okay, I'll just change that to top 5 states by renewable energy. So let's bring that in, renewable energy, and then we have the states. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing we did here, which is to change this to change the filter here. So click on state and then change the top end, 5, and then we have renewable energy, and then we can apply. Okay. So I'm just going to change this one. So I'll give it some rounded corners so I can just copy and paste on, use the format painter for the rest of them. So let's go to effect, and under effect we have visual border. We turn that on, and then let's change that to 10 pixels. Yeah, but I didn't want it to be that shade of color, so I'll just change that. Okay, change that to white, and that should do. So I'll just format painter and put it on here and here as well. Looks like we have to change this again. Anyways, I'll change it now. So I also changed the font here as well. So we'll just maintain the same thing we did there. So I turned off the title on the x-axis and also turned on the title here as well. And then I'll change the name of the visual. So under title, let's change this to top 5 states by renewables. And we'll change this one to top 10 states by electricity generation. That's all done. We're moving on to creating the line chart. Hit line chart here. Just adjust it a bit. I have a size in mind anyways, but let's add the values first. So that will be year, and then we have the electricity generated. So I'm just going to do focus mode just so you can see that it's going from 2023 to 2001 instead of the other way. So let's go back to the report, and then we'll just click here. You see these three dots, sort axis, and then you change it to year, and you change it to sort ascending. So that will take it from 2001 to 2023. I'm just going to resize this. Okay, let's go to properties, and then I'll change that to 377 by 825. Okay, perfect. So let's see if we can get this to, and then let's just make some changes here. Okay, we'll go on to format visual. Let's change the line first to the green that we want. And then we want to change that, the markers. So I'm just putting those up. I also want to change the color as well of the markers, right? Let's change that to this one. And then I'll increase the transparency of something. Turn on the border. So this is just some extra stuff. You don't have to do it. You can also do it as well. Depends on you. So I'll just change this to continuous data because I don't want all the years to show. On the x-axis here, I'll just change this to continuous, and then you see that that changes. I can see that the grid lines are still showing for vertical. I'll turn that off as well. And then I'll just adjust this guy a little bit here, just to give some space underneath. The last visual will be the shape map. So I'll just hit this. If you don't have this visual showing here, you would need to go to File and then Options and Setting, Options. And when that comes up, then you go to Preview Features and then select this. Then you have the shape map visual. Okay? But then I don't need it, so I'll just cancel. And I will drag the state as location and electricity generated here. So you can see what it gives us here. And then I would add some things to the tooltip here. I'll add the renewable energy and electricity generated per state. And then I'll go to format visual. I'll change this to, I'll turn on the zoom rather. And then I'll go to fill colors. I'll change the minimum, the maximum in this case would be red because that will be the state with the most carbon emission, and then the minimum will be green, so that's with the least. And then I'll turn on the gradients here. And so we have this, and when we select, you can see what it does. Go ahead to add text box that has the name of the report. Let's just add that. Let's move it here and increase it. Electricity data overview. And then 2001 to 2023. So let's change the size. I'll just select that and I'll make it about 36. I'll also change the color as well to this one. I'll reduce the font size here to maybe 32. Then I'll change the background. So I'll just select this and I'll change the background here. And we'll change the font color, which we didn't change. So yeah, there we have it. Or we could just use this color instead. So there are just a few changes I have to make here and there. Let's start with the map visual. I'm going to change this to, I'll change the title to CO2 emissions by state. Now, I just want to show you something that would happen so that you can make the correction on your own end as well. If I click on a particular year here, you'd see that this would change. So we need to edit the interaction. And then if I select, let's say, clean, this goes like this. So we need to update the measures to reflect it better. Okay, so let's do that. So let's update this function. That's the renewable energy, total renewable energy measure, and the percentage renewable energy measure to look out for when there's no value there, because clean isn't recognized as renewable. So if I click on coal as well, it's the same thing. So let's update that measure. So let's just hit this. In this case, what we'll be using is a variable. So variables in Power BI, they're just to help you store calculated values that can be reused at any point in time. And they also have like a return statement as well. So we'll use a variable for this. And let us do, so I'll just update this this measure. So I'll just VAR is the variable. So I'll name that renewable energy. So that would be, name it renewable GWH. So that'll be equal to this function, this calculate function, right? So this variable would then return, and then we would use, what it would return would be the coalesce function, and we'll put in the variable again, and then it will return 0. So if there's no value to evaluate in that sense, it just returns a 0. That's the whole essence of that. So we create a variable, and then the variable, the calculate function is in that variable. And then once it evaluates that, if it doesn't get any value, it returns a 0. So hit enter. Do the same thing for, let's do the same thing for percentage renewable energy. So now we'll just create another variable. So let's do variable renewable energy share to the divide statement. And then it will return the coalesce function again. And then we have the variable energy share. So hit enter. Okay, so let's see this now. So when we, let's try coal again, and then you can see that it gives you like 0. There's no value there. So that's all good. The next thing we need to do is add the icons to the card visual. So just click on this, come here, go to images, select electricity generated, turn this on, and then I'll browse for the image. We have all of it here. So I'll just select electricity generated. Okay. I want to increase the size a little bit. So let me do 70 pixel. Let's see. Okay, that's good. So you can just adjust this. And then I'll go to the next one, renewable energy, turn this on again. I'll get this. Okay, and just change this. Hit enter. I'll do the same thing for the other two. Resize the donut chart in terms of like the title and the legend rather. Let's see if we can resize that. Let's maybe do a 12. Okay. Yeah, and this looks okay to me. So the last thing we'll do is interactivity. So I've selected this slicer, and obviously I don't want it to interact with this because it's year and year as well. So if you actually select 2001, you see that this happens, right? So I don't want that to happen. So I will just edit the interaction and then I'll block this. Okay. Let's try state. So for state, you can see that for certain states it's just showing. So I don't want it to affect any of these two. I'll do the same thing as well. So select this, format, edit interaction, and then I'll turn this off by hitting none and none. Okay. So let's see this if it affects anything. Yeah, we need to also change this as well because it affects this too. So we turn this off and we'll turn this off as well. So you can just play around and see what visuals affect other visuals. And when you select it, you can hit format and then edit interactions. So that's it.
There you have it. We've transformed electricity generation data into actionable insights. Which state do you think generated the most renewable energy? Drop your guesses in the comment section. Found this video helpful? Don't forget to share, hit that like button, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.